Hi, today we're going to go through some tile stuff. I'm going to start off by showing you how to do a shower wall. This is our washroom in the basement development. It's probably looking quite similar to any washroom that you've got in your home, so you can relate the stuff you learn here and how to lay it out properly, and you could go use that at your house to renovate your washroom or do a brand new washroom in a basement development. So what I like to do is I like to measure a center line up the center of the wall because I always do start with the back wall. And then I need to get a level line established above the edge of the tub so that I can put a ledger board on. Then I run my tile up to the ceiling. I come back the next day, remove the ledger board and tie back into the bathtub. Reason being for that is that with the bathtub flange here and the edge of the bathtub, it's not always poured perfectly or made perfect. So if you're starting with your first row on the edge of the tub, it's quite difficult because you're going to have to make adjustments along the bottom edge to maintain a level line across the top. So what I like to do is just put a wood board perfectly level, allowing me to fill in the tile after I've got the rest of the tile complete so that the weight of all this tile is not pushing down on one that's uneven on this tile edge. So you can take the time and pre-cut your bottom row and not do the wood way, but I think you end up with a much better success rate going off something that's perfectly level rather than the tub edge, which is not. So I'm going to begin by putting a center line up the center of this wall so that I can check my measurements over to the edges of the wall to make sure that my tile is going to run in a nice perfect manner. So okay, I've got 59 and a half, 59 and a quarter, so you can see it's in and out a little bit, 59 and a quarter. That's because I measured at the taper edge, obviously. So I'm going to go with 59 and a quarter, bring that in half. Check it on both sides. Okay, so it is very important that this line is exactly center, so that's why I've taken the time to measure on back and forth on both sides. This is going to be the center line that your tile follows off of to maintain levelness as you're going up the wall. So grab your 4-foot level. When I'm doing wall tiles, smaller grout joints, things like that, I like to use a fine tipped pencil rather than a big construction pencil, just so that my line is a little tighter. Okay, so I'm measured up to here. Really good practice with the spirit level is that if you ran 4 feet of your line on this side, you want to spin your level and use the other edge this time, because if your level is out a little bit, it will kind of correct itself if you go one way, then the other way, then the other way, rather than if you keep using the one side of the level and say your level is not showing perfect level, then your line will start to curve. So go up halfway up the wall, switch the level to the other side, connect back on your line and get your line right up to the ceiling. Okay, so this is my center line of the wall. Now I'm going to take some measurement checks off the center line to the walls just to see if everything's running parallel. I did check this wall earlier with the level. It's shooting very close, but it is a little bit out. So this is where you're going to be able to tell how the tiles are going to fit in running off the center line. So 29.58. So it's all shooting good. It's within 3/16 of an inch down the whole line. Let's go check the other side. Okay, and that side's running perfect. So it does appear that I have a little bit of a curve on the wall around this point on the wall, but not a big deal. Most of it's looking nice and tight. If you're showing quite a bit of a difference, maybe up to an inch out or something like that, you still have to maintain off a center level line. So that's where you're going to try to hide it a little bit, because you work off the center line and the unevenness of the tile on the inside of the walls, if you use a larger tile, will be less noticeable. It will be very noticeable if your center line goes off line to correct your sides. So this is the most important line that is on this tub right now. So next, when you got your center line all the way up the center, I'd like to take the tile that I'm using. I'm gonna measure the bottom edge of the tub and find my lowest point so that, I'm gonna find, the lowest point so that I can cut down the tiles and use a full tile on the bottom. So I'll explain that to you as I'm going. Okay, so my bubble is closer to the line on the right, which means that this side of the tub is higher than that side of the tub over there. So that tells me that I need to start over there with the tile, full tile, and then when I get to correcting it over on this side, I will be cutting off the full tile. If I started on the side that is higher, when I got to the other side, I would have to add a piece into the bottom of the tile. So hope that makes sense. So again, with the low side, got my tile, set it up on the wall. Now, if you can look here in the bottom here, I'm just going to show you how uneven this tub is and why I choose to use the ledger board. See how it's rising as it goes into the corner right here? Let me show that again. So there's just a little natural curve in the tub, which throws a lot of people off at the start. So like I said, it's better to just use a ledger board and come back and put those pieces in at the end where you can take more time and cut them in perfectly. So here's my tile. I'm just gonna mark a line on it. Got my level. Gonna set up on that line nice and level. So level off, and again the same technique as before, spinning it. Okay, so now you can see here I've got a nice level line established across the back edge of the tub. We started with our low point. We're nice and level, so you can see that I'm just gonna have to grind the bottom of this tile off a tiny bit because of that curve of the tub. You can see, just jumps up a little higher on our line. As I come down, you can see, you can watch here. I'll just spin out of the way for you. So you can see that I've already got it cut off, like I'm already getting a 3/16 higher than the line, which means to make this tile run level, I'm gonna have to cut that off the bottom. So now I'm going to continue and mark a level line out this way and out this way. And then I like to mark a vertical level line up there to put my metal Schluter edge onto. And then I'm ready to do my dry fit of the tile, just to do some last minute figuring out of the measurements, how these tiles work with each other, and figuring out my pattern and such. All right, so I've got my level lines across here. I just went past the raw edge of the drywall onto the primer a little bit with my line. I'm not too sure exactly how far I'm gonna let my tile run on this edge yet. What I like to do too is leave this moisture resistant drywall unprimed so that it gets a better bond to the paper rather than priming this all and you're trying to bond your adhesive to primer, which is got a little bit more of a flatter, smoother surface, so it won't grab on as well. So another thing that I'll just go over quickly here too, with the tub flange, when you're bringing your drywall down, you don't cover over the flange, you just need to butt into it, and your tiles will come and cover over the top, so you get your nice perfect finish here. All right, well, I'm gonna level these vertical lines and then we'll cut our wood batten to go around the edge and our Schluter to go up on the sides, and then we should be ready to go. Okay, so now that you've got your vertical line leveled here in the center and a horizontal line replicating the top of your first row of tiles, you're gonna measure your back width to cut down the wood that you're using for your ledger board. I've just used some scrap baseboard from when I was upstairs doing some construction. It's about 4 inches wide, made out of MDF. Just has to be nice and smooth and straight so you can follow this line perfectly and then attach it to the studs. All right, I've got 59 1/4. So now you've got your ledger board cut to size. This board here is gonna go in, and you can see it's tight from wall to wall. Gonna be very easy for me to attach to the studs now, and I'll finish off in here once I figure out how far I'm coming out. Now I can take this board and out in a larger space, set it on the ground and begin to do a dry fit of my wall tile before I start. That way I'll know all the measurements of the tile, what size shims I'm going to use, all sorts of answers will come out when we do the dry fit. So let's go take a look. Okay, so now that you've got your ledger board cut to size, I can use the floor to establish some lines and do a dry fit that is accurate to what's actually going to happen in the shower. By doing this, I can achieve a couple of things: knowing what my cuts are going to be like on the side, knowing what the tile is going to look like, also knowing what it's going to look like where it hits the ceiling. Like if I'm starting with a full tile at the bottom, I would probably like to finish with a full tile at the top. So this will establish what is actually going to happen with these tiles. So Here's my board. Just gonna start by putting it up against the wall. Okay. I'm gonna mark my center line on the board, which was 29 5/8. Click on the edge. Okay, so that's my center line. Now, because I can't use my level to level this line on the floor, I've got to establish a square line off of here so that I can just measure over, and then I'll have a fairly similar level line to what's in the shower. Just gonna use my framing square. I'm gonna mark this block of wood so that I know that if it got moved during any of this operation. So, framing square. Up on the edge. Mark a line. Just gonna put a straight edge, like a level, on the existing line and extend it. If you're parallel down here, you should just be able to extend your line. Okay, and what I can do here, because this is representing the inside corner from top of the tub to ceiling, I can measure that off my line in there and establish where the ceiling height would be so that I can make a line that way. So I'm gonna go in the washroom and just measure that up. Okay, so here's my line, which is represented by the board that's inside the living room there. I'm gonna run my tape to the ceiling. Check a few points. I got 71, so I'm gonna move along. 71 in the 16th. And back to 71. So fairly safe to say that I can use 71 in a 16th, and the tiles will just get shaved down a little bit on the inside corners if that's where it got a little bit tighter. So 71 and 1/16 of an inch should be my total rise from my level line to the ceiling. Okay, so now that I've got that measurement, 71 and 1/16, I'm going to measure off my board. Carry on down to here, 71 and 1/16. That should be approximately where my ceiling stops. So now that I've got this square line from the board, I'm just going to measure over that 29 and 5/8 so that I can get my center line finished through here. Now that you've got your center line marked out, just scribe a line all the way through. So I'm going to take that same 71 and 1/16, which was the total height from the top of the ledger to the ceiling, mark that over here. Just going to connect those two lines up. Okay, so got my ledger board cut to the width of my shower. I've got the wall line replicated in here. Off of this line, I've measured to my center, the 29 5/8, and I've got that line going consistent all the way through. And I've got the top of my ceiling marked out here. I'm ready to begin the dry fit with the wall tiles. I'm going to use these wall tiles in a brick pattern. So something like that. When I do a dry fit, I like to be precise. So I'm going to use my tile spacers. For this job, I've chosen 16-inch tile spacers. I like to put 2 in each joint, and wherever it makes contact, just to keep even spacing throughout. So this is the type of spacer that I've chosen. In other jobs, I set aside a couple that are right here. Other jobs that I've used, this is a 1/4-inch spacer. More would be typically used on the floor. This one's 3/16, just a little bit smaller. Here's a 1/8 spacer, and here's the 16-inch spacer that we're going to use. When you're using smaller joints, keeping your tile looking good is a little bit tougher because you don't have as much play to move the tiles around. When you're using a larger joint, the success rate is much easier because you can fool the eye and adjust the tile a little bit if necessary. So that's the plus and minus of different size grout joints. So with my pattern, I'm doing the bricklayer pattern like I had mentioned. I can't just have the one center line to follow up because I'm gonna have 2 tiles just off the center line like that, and then my next tile is going to be staggered exactly half off of that. So I need to establish another line parallel down so that I can line this front edge up with keeping all the tiles even as I go up the wall. How I'm going to do that is find out the center of this tile, mark a line on it, set it on the center line, mark a line on the other side, and figure out the offset of the tile to create the offset center line. Okay, 11 3/4. So I'm going to measure that down to 5 7/8. Mark it on both sides. Okay, so there's my center line. Got the tile sitting on the center line. Now I'm going to take my pencil and just mark the edge of this tile, but keep in mind I'm using 1/16 of an inch spacers, so the lines are actually the center where the spacer goes, so I need to be just a 1/2 of a 1/16, a 32nd off this edge of the line to be correct. Okay, so that's a nice offset line established there. Okay, so the offset line is exactly 5 7/8, which is half of the tile thickness. So 5 7/8. Just get my level, put that through. Okay, so center line, offset center line. So you can see by dry fitting already, we've established our offset center line to the exact spacing that the tile requires to have to keep a 1/2 center spacing. So like I said, quite important to do the dry fit, and we're gonna start ours up right now. right through the edge. Here's my line going down representing the wall, so I know that I can make these cuts to these first couple of tiles and they should run fairly consistent all the way up each side. That's why I only make the one line on the one side, because by marking the center line, it should be the same on the other. So if you're still nervous about this situation, how your tiles are going to fit in, draw the other line and create the full template, then you'll know exactly how everything's going to hit. So just replicate what your shower wall looks like down onto the floor and go from there. Another thing I'm noticing is that if I run my tiles full tile at the bottom of the tub, I'm going to have to cut this one, just this tiny strip off the top. That's fairly acceptable to have it a little bit different, but you never want it to be a thin sliver piece at the ceiling. So if you do have just a small little distance more to make it before you're going to be at your ceiling, then you want to make your adjustments at the bottom of your tub so that you can correctly hit into the ceiling with a majority of a full tile. The look is much better, it being a larger tile at the ceiling than a skinny little piece. And if there is some inconsistencies at the ceiling, then you're going to see those in a smaller tile easier. So this is basically my pattern that I'm going to use up the wall. I think this row right here, I'm going to change in a border piece that will match my floor. So I'm going to take these out right now and just have a look with those two in. Okay, you can see my border piece is a little bit smaller than the actual tiles. So I'm just going to shove this down and reset all my lines, of course. Okay, so you can see here that me making the smaller border piece put my ceiling tiles right on the ceiling line. So this is effectively the pattern I'm going to use. Rather than having to cut these ones up at the top, I've made a modified border piece that will make the spacing perfect. So here we are. I'm going to start gluing it up in the shower and we'll go from there. All right, so now that we've finished with our Dryfit, I want to get my level line going up this wall so that I can finish here just past the tub. So what I'm going to do is measure the length from the wall to the edge of the tub, relate it to my tiles to see what type of layout I'm going to do as far as coming down the sides. So measuring 29.5 for the length of my tub. So I'm going to take 3 of my tiles, just set them up in here. Okay, so you can see that this is quite a ways further than the edge of the tub. So I can work with a little bit smaller of a detail. There's no set dimension that you've got to come off your tub here. I wouldn't go any less than 3 inches, and I probably wouldn't go any more than 6, and I'm getting 6.5. So I'm going to reduce that a little bit just for aesthetic reasons. So how I'm going to figure that out is dry fit these tiles lengthwise. Okay, so now that I've got these dry fit lengthwise, I'm going to measure. they go 35.5 inches. Okay, so that's right there. Now, that is 6.5 inches further than the edge of the tub, which I don't really like because if you remember from our offset lines, these tiles are 5 7/8 to the center, which means if I did a brick pattern past the edge here, I would have half a tile at 5 7/8 and then a filler strip, and then half a tile and then a filler strip. So for my pattern, keeping this overhang under the 5 7/8 is ideal for aesthetic purposes. I'm going to choose to just go with 4 inches past the edge of the tub. So I'm measuring 29.5. So I'm going to go 33.5. Okay, so that's the approximate line of where this level line is going to hit up the wall going up with this pattern. So I think that's going to work for me. Now I'm going to transfer this 33.5 on the wall and level up. All right, so that's my level line on this side. I'm going to proceed with doing the same thing on the other side. Okay, so now that I've got my two level lines established on each side, I am going to use a metal Schluter tile edge. I won't need one up at the ceiling because I am going to tile right to the ceiling. Don't need one down at the tub, just two vertical ones on each side of the shower walls. Okay, so I've got 94 3/4. And 94 3/4. So I am going to cut that a tiny bit shorter, so 94 5/8. The reason being is once the floor goes in, I'll make a sight on the spot cut at the bottom of the Schluter for the floor to go underneath the tile edge. So 94 5/8 is what I'm going to cut these down to. When I return, we're going to mount the back ledger board, we're going to mount the Schluter on each side, and then we're going to measure for our side ledger boards, and then we should have all of our lines established and ledger board on, and we will measure over that 5 7/8 to create our offset line, and we'll begin to tile. Okay. Okay, so now you've got your tile edge cut to the right height. You've got your back ledger board and your two side ledger boards. It's time to begin to install them. So I'm going to take the back one and start with that. I like to just hold it in position, mark where the studs are from where I see the drywall screws. Okay, so on something like this, it's easier to pre-start your screws when you're trying to precisely make sure the edge is going to be at the top. So okay. So you can see I'm right on my line. Just going to run this screw into the stud. I'm on my line here. Okay, back ledger board, all in, nice and level. Now I'm going to attach the tile edge because my side ledger is actually going to sit on top of the tile edge, so I can't really install this one first, or I'd have to try to tuck it in after. So I'm just going to attach the tile edge to the line. To do that, I just use a hand stapler. You can see at the bottom of the wall here. Just shoots a nice little staple. Okay, so I made a little shortening to these on the bottom for the tile to go underneath, but at the top here, you're definitely going to want to push it right up to the ceiling. Make sure you're on your pencil line. Fire staple in. Keep going all the way down on your pencil line. Every 1 foot. Okay, so if you don't have a stapler, you can use roofing nails. They got a nice flat head on them, so they won't get in the way of your tile. Okay, so these nails and the staples are just to hold this edge temporarily anyways. When the tile goes over top with the adhesive behind it, that's what actually secures the tile edge into the tile, is the adhesive. This is just temporary holding it there so that you can get your tile up there. So. Okay, so now that your tile edge is on, I'm just going to install the last ledger on each side. You can see here that I need to make a little cut from the inside corner to on top. Mark this one out. Also, you can see on this one, I'm going to hit a hole in it. I need to put a hole in there to go over the tub stem. so I'll just cut these and be ready to final attachment. Cut the wrong measurement. Okay, so see I'm all attached in nice there. Schluter is all on the line. That side's ready to go. Okay, so got the ledger on all the way around, got my steel tile, or my tile edge up, got my center line marked. All that's left to do is to mark my 5/8 offset center line. Then I should be ready to start gluing down the tiles. They're both level, so they should be running parallel. So I should see 5/8 up, 5 5/8 or 5 7/8, and I do. So finish leveling that all the way up. Okay, so you've seen me do the dry fit on the floor. Another method is doing a dry fit right in position on the wall. Just helps with confidence in tiling, knowing exactly how things are going to go before you get the glue out. For this demonstration, I'm just going to use some regular painting masking tape, go through and actually tape the tiles to the wall just so I can have a final look, approval, and just know how everything's going to work. So I'm going to start up here. So I'm right on my center line. Just gonna push that piece up there, tape it down. Okay, so I've got my floor in on the bottom, so I'm going to measure for my cuts on the side. Half of the tile would be 5 7/8. With the tile that I've chosen, an exact half tile is going to work on this side. Just going to double check on this side. And it's going to work on both. So I'm going to take out one of my tiles, measure the 5 7/8. This is a quick cutter for ceramic tiles. This will speed your job up dramatically, but it can only be used on certain tiles. You cannot use this type of cutter on stone. Some thicker floor tiles and things like that you'll struggle with as well. The advantage to this is just quick cutting right on the spot. Where cutting with a wet saw, you've got to go cut the piece, let it dry off, set up a wet saw, and deal with all that other stuff. So definitely speeds your job up if you select a tile that you can use one of these cutters with. So here I am gonna set up on the line. This is a gauge so that I can continually cut the same pieces. So I'm right on my line, bring that up to it. There we go, so now I don't have to keep marking each piece out. Slide that across. One is often enough, I like to go two. Press down, there we have it. Just kind of marks the score line, breaks it perfectly. Okay, so that's first row dry fit. Grab your tape and just put a secure band of tape across the whole top of those so they can't delaminate when you're building up your next level. For this demonstration, I'm just going to go one more row for you guys just to see how you would do a dry fit on the wall. In past tile jobs, when I've got benches to go around in a steam shower or just some trickier situations where floors are not level and stuff like that, I dry fit everything. On this job, probably didn't really need to do it on a smaller one like that, but you have to make that decision yourself at home on how tricky your project is and how confident you are in doing the job. So this time around, because I'm doing the brick pattern, I'm going to use my offset line to line my tile up with. Okay, so I've got my second row in. Just going to put another strip of tape across the top. Okay, so that's 2 rows of the pattern that I'm going to use. Dry fit in. You could take your level and double check that you're all running level at the top here. You can see that I'm on my level line for the center. I'm on my offset line for the half staggered pattern, and looks like we're good to go. Take some measurements from the ceiling. 59 1/4, 59 1/4, 59 1/4. So everything's looking really good here for me. I'm going to take my dry fit off and get ready to start gluing it down.